Welcome back. European Union leaders have concluded what has been described as a controversial deal with Turkey to halt illegal migration flows to Europe in return for financial and political rewards for Ankara. And that's a summary, but here's what it's all about.
A historic day. That's how the Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu described Friday, March the 18th, 2016, after he and EU leaders signed a new deal to curb illegal migration into Europe in return for financial and political rewards for Turkey. The deal aims to close the main route over which 1 million migrants and refugees poured across the Aegean Sea to Greece before going on to Germany and Sweden since last year.
Turkey and EU have the same destiny, the same challenges.
In the deal, Turkey would take back all illegal migrants who crossed to Greece, including Syrians, in return for the EU taking in thousands of Syrian refugees directly from Turkey, rewarding it with money, early visa-free travel and progress in its EU membership negotiations.
Some may think this agreement is a silver bullet, but the reality is more complex. It is just one pillar of the European comprehensive strategy and can work only if the other pillars are also implemented. This includes strengthening the EU's external borders, keeping the Western Balkans route closed and getting back to Schengen, amongst others.
The EU has also agreed to accelerate disbursement of €3 billion already pledged in support for refugees in Turkey and to provide a further €3 billion by 2018 once Ankara came up with a list of projects that qualified for EU assistance.
This is also an important agreement to deepen our relation, our accession process and relation. Of course, the most important aspect is visa liberalization. Since the admission process is starting, visa liberalization is a natural extension result of this readmission. And visa liberalization, we hope, will be before end of June.
But Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has accused the EU of hypocrisy over migrants, human rights and terrorism after supporters of the separatist Kurdistan Workers' Party set up protest tents near the summit venue.
There is no difference between Daesh or PKK. Everybody must listen and must understand our feelings. Before coming here, I visited hospitals and I saw wounded people. We respect the pains of other nations, but we expect respect to our pains as well.
Britain said the deal was a good thing for Britain, even though it does not belong to the passport-free travel Schengen zone.
Well, we're not in the Schengen zone. People can't travel through Greece onward to continental Europe and into Britain. But it actually helps us if fewer people are arriving in continental Europe in the first place, because that takes the pressure off, including the pressure off at Calais. So it's right we help, it's right we work with these countries, it's right that we played a role today in helping to bring this deal about, and that we're going to help implement this deal, because a harder border between Greece and Turkey is a good thing for Britain.
However, Mr. Cameron said because of its particular status in the Union, Britain would not give Turks visa-free travel, but would still take its share in the implementation of the deal.
Deterring people from coming and shutting down the trade that smuggling gangs have been exploiting. Now we've got this on paper, we've absolutely got to make it work in practice. This will not be easy. It will require a comprehensive and large-scale operation. Britain will help. We have the expertise, we have skilled officials. Indeed, we're already playing our part. Royal Fleet Auxiliary Ship Mounts Bay and Border Force vessels are patrolling the Aegean. Asylum experts and interpreters are already working in Greece to help them process individual cases. And today I've said that we stand ready to do more.
However, France's President, François Hollande, says the negotiations and deal do not guarantee EU membership for Turkey. He said France's position on the issue had not changed, and the process of Turkey joining the EU could still take years and years.
The deal has been signed, but is everyone really on board with this deal? Not really. For one, Amnesty International says European leaders are speaking from both sides with this deal, as it only goes on to show the EU trying to turn its back on the global refugee crisis. But the people in question, the migrants, seem to know nothing about this deal and are still determined, as ever, to resettle in Europe.
Bye-bye.
Leading dissenting voices against the new EU-Turkey deal is Amnesty International, which has accused the European leaders of double-speak. Amnesty believes the deal hides Europe's determination to turn its back on the global refugee crisis. Amnesty International's director for Europe and Central Asia, John Delhousen, said that Turkey is not a safe country for refugees and migrants, adding that any deal to return migrants based on claims that it was would be flawed, illegal and immoral. He also said the UN had warned that Greece's capacity to assess asylum claims needs to be strengthened for the deal, as implementation is crucial. The UN, however, says that it will be reasonable to expect 1 million migrants and refugees will reach Europe by sea this year, and the situation is worsening.
We can say that the traffic this year from Libya to Italy is stronger than it was last year, and the traffic from Turkey to Greece is much stronger than it was at this time last year. So both those things combined are strong indicators that we'll see over 1 million migrants arriving in Europe by sea this year. Of course, so much depends on the underlying factors. Will there be peace in Syria? Will there be an agreement between the EU and some of these sending countries and also the transit countries like Turkey? Those are things we just can't answer right now. But certainly the underlying conditions of urgency, of war, of conflict, of famine, particularly places like the Horn of Africa, that hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. So it would be reasonable to expect 1 million migrants or more this year as well.
1 million migrants and refugees, mostly Syrians, reached Europe in 2015, and more than 4.8 million Syrians are refugees in countries bordering Syria, including Lebanon and Turkey, and in North Africa, while a further 900,000 have applied for asylum in Europe, mostly Germany, since the war began 5 years ago, according to the UN Refugee Agency. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, however, says that the EU-Turkey deal was bound to run into setbacks and faced big legal challenges, but nevertheless had an irreversible momentum. She said the agreement also showed that Europe is capable of dealing with the challenges, showing that it has taken an important step on the road towards a sustainable solution to the subject and not just a bogus solution. After the deal on Friday, Greece set to work trying to document refugees and asylum seekers, with more arriving at registration centres early in the morning to pick up migrants and taking them to the port of Mytilene, where they boarded a ferry heading for Kavala harbour north of the country. From there, migrants will be transferred to various shelters set up and run by Greek authorities in the territory in recent weeks. The deal comes into effect on March the 20th. Migrants' arrival to Greece have continued unabated despite the deal. Latest data shows 1,498 people arrived on Greece's islands from Turkey on Friday, and by Saturday the number was increasing. More than 47,000 men, women and children are presently stuck in the country, scattered from islands close to Turkey to the waterlogged fields in Greece's northern frontier. Aid agencies at the refugee camps don't think the deal will last.
The deal is only going to lead to more disorder, more lack of dignity, more chaos for the people who are already here in Greece, and the idea that you can base resettlement on conditions that people are returned from Greece to Turkey is unethical, and it will only ensure that desperate people will only seek more desperate ways to come to Europe.
For Europe, it's very important that they come forward with a common coordinated approach to deal with the refugee crisis for those refugees who are in Europe. And also that's why we keep asking for legal avenues for resettlement, for humanitarian readmissions, any other way which saves these desperate refugees from giving themselves up to the ruthless smugglers and traffickers.
And what do the migrants think of the deal?
I don't want the European Union to decide my future or my life. Just like all the 15,000 people right here in this camp. We don't want anyone to decide which country and which life and language we will speak or live with it.
I think the meeting in Brussels also, I think they refuse the people when they reach to Greece after 20 in these months. They send back to Turkey. I think it's not a good idea because they fled from the war.
Adiola, thank you. When we come back after the break, we get an in-depth analysis and independent perspective on the deal. Our guest is the UN Peace Ambassador. Please join us again.